Good morning again, everybody. As you can see, I have a very, very disciplined and obedient panel. And I'm just telling you up front, it might not be a very, very peaceful panel. They were already fighting with each other when we were going through the sessions. Ke, aap kya bol rahe hain? So I encourage that we keep that spirit over here and none of you lose it. Our session is an interesting one. Authentic storytelling for Gen Z. Now, just to put it out there, Gen Z is pretty much anybody who's almost 26 years of age right now. A little over 8 o'clock, a little over 8 years, so maybe 9 to 26 is what we are now looking at the Gen Z audience. This audience is important for people such as myself because that's the next set of your consumers and next generation of consumers. What they're going to tell us is, do we know enough about them? Why should we know about them? And what should young marketers especially know about them in your everyday decision making? So I'm going to just, put it out there. Everybody over here is already introduced, and thank you for that, Aditya. But then let's just talk about Gen Z a little bit because आप लोग बहुत ज़्यादा इसके ऊपर passionate थे, for want of a better word. So let's go. Karthi, why don't you go for it? Now, he said that you guys already have certain mindsets about what Gen Z is. So go ahead and just give us a sense on what, how you think people should look at this consumer group.
All right. So I'll start by trying to slay some of these, tropes or myths. So there is this trope that on the one hand, Gen Z is very self-centered and self-obsessed because they're always taking selfies and so on and so forth. But I can tell you that I know people in their 40s and their 50s, and my mother who's 80, who's equally self-obsessed about taking selfies and whatnot. So trope number one, let's slay that. On the other hand, we see lots of research which talks about how the Gen Z folks are the ones who are super socially aware and they are super conscious and they want only sustainable products and they will not support brands who are not authentic. There may be some truth in that, but I think even that is a lot of BS because the same kids also want to order 70 things on Swiggy all the time, and all the stuff coming on these quick delivery systems are also creating lots of garbage, non-biodegradable, etc., etc. So just like all of us here, I think Gen Z is also full of contradictions and confusion. So painting these very singular stereotypes, I think, is pretty dangerous. So that's the thing I'd caution us about.
Thank you so much, Karthi. I didn't want to do a death by panel kind of thing, but they're already sitting like that. But Ashish, I remember when we were doing the discussion, you were like, "Lekin zaruri kyun hai? Matlab, who are they important for?" And we were looking at different consumer groups, and they're like, "That's not where they will become important." Do you just want to take us through? We already discussed that there are certain groups where they definitely make sense. But do you just want to take us through how you look at it right now as a massive marketer from that audience's perspective, your own take on them?
So I'll talk in reference for ACKO, right? So we are a digital first insurance company and we're designing for this generation. Okay, so let's say in another 4 years time, the Gen Z will be 30-year-old, and a 30-year-old when he wants to buy insurance, he's going to want an app first approach. Okay? So they have a strong purchasing power. They might not be relevant to a lot of audiences, a lot of markets right now, but I think what's really important is for certain segments they might not be profitable right now, but they are definitely going to be very profitable in the future. So that's how we look at it, and to design for them, it requires a completely different mindset. I'll be honest, I have a 25-year-old cousin. His phone, the apps on his phone are completely different from my phone. Okay, yeah, the music he listens to is completely different than I listen to. So he introduces me. So I wouldn't even say that we understand them very well. You really need to be in the shoes to really get to them.
Fair enough, I got it. I have worked too much with Dr. Batra, so my patience levels are exactly like him. And to my dear team at the back, I can almost hear all your complaints and concerns like all the way till here. So let's just keep it low, please. Now, thank you. Amit ji, up to you now, right now, and then we'll, kind of move on from this. Again, wahi Gen Z wali baat pe, overall, I don't want you to speak on that because I think between the two gentlemen, we have kind of discussed, it's a very broken down audience, but during our discussion, you said, and because our topic today is authentic storytelling, I'd like to move in that direction eventually. You said even the word authentic kind of needs in a particular way. Authentic for Gen Z kya hota hai?
See, hi, good morning everyone. I think Noor, what you and Karthi said, I have a different take on that, and I'll tell you, and then we'll come to this particular point to build in. See, either we are actually, it can't be two sides of the same coin. Either we are saying, is it a demographic bifurcation, as you mentioned, about 8 to 26 or 9 to 26, whatever it is, and what Karthi said, it is more of a behavioral bifurcation. If a 50-year-old guy also have the same attribute, then obviously he can be considered as Gen Z. You can't bifurcate because he's a 50-year-old, no, you can't be a part of it. So I think the first thing that we really need to define whether it's a behavioral segmentation that we want to do, or it's only a demographic segmentation, what you call, because that's classically we have actually put in across. Now coming to your point on authenticity, it's very important about three things, and which are primarily defined from 3 T's: trust, transparency, and technology. Because if you actually see the gamut of all the 3, they actually combine to provide what is actually today a Gen Z or a behavior of that particular Gen Z looks for. If they don't trust on the brand, they will never even able to go to your particular, even for an experiment also. If there is not, they don't feel that you are transparent as a brand to anyone that you're actually transparency in the dealing with, transparent in the messaging that you actually transparent, they will never be able to. Most important is technology. What is the value that you're actually trying to make a difference in their life? What convenience you are actually trying to provide? Whether it is the app first, whether it is experience first, doesn't matter. There are many traditional brands which have nothing to do with app, but still they are considered as the most favorite brand on Gen Z. As an example of Philips trimmers, sold maximum in the India, 26 lakhs trimmers sold every year. They don't belong to Gen Z as a community. Their basic target audience starts from 30-35. So that is what I want to rest my particular point in case on this, Noor.
Thank you so much. Impossible for us to speak about Gen Z marketing and not talk about generative AI right now. Everybody seems to be obsessed with that as a concept. But just Ashish, I'm going to bring this, throw this back at you again. From your standpoint, and we have a lot of young marketers today who are watching Between the Room and will be reading our reports on this. What is your advice? Some of the tools that are available to them today where they can understand this broken up, elusive, slightly fragmented TG a little better and do a slightly better job, more efficient job in reaching out to them. What do they have today that probably we didn't have last year?
So I think ChatGPT changed the world, right? Everybody woke up one day and they said, okay, ye bhi aisa bhi hota hai. So I would just say my advice to even to my team and marketers is have fun, enjoy these tools, but don't forget the fundamentals of storytelling. The fundamentals of storytelling and fundamentals of communication will still apply. You can have fun with it. We've also done a lot of stuff, but that's the most important part. This is a tool. It's called a tool for a reason, right? So use it, have fun with it, but don't forget the basics.
All right, excellent. Amazingly, it's coming back to you. But because we are saying authentic and storytelling, we discussed there are certain restraints in India at the moment, right? Not just India, various countries, but we are here, so we'll talk about India. Whether we look at some of the shows on OTT platforms, some of the advertising, and we talked about Tanishq from a couple of years ago, there is a certain mindset out there where it is very clearly now defined that there are things you're allowed to do and things you're not allowed to do, irrespective of how creative you want it to be. And Karthi, just want to take your take on that. How much can you still remain authentic when there are many filters and rules and regulations that you must follow that we didn't have so much some time back?
See, my observation is that rules and regulations and filters come for 2 sets of reasons. One, because of bigotry, and we are seeing a fair amount of that happening today. But second, equally important, also because of mayhem. Because we get access to new kinds of tools, which to start with end up being toys. So that journey from toy to tool, I think, is a bit of a journey. And in the same context, in the context of storytelling, the journey from gimmickry to gravitas. So frequently, we are ourselves responsible for being irresponsible and playing on the gimmickry side. We are trying to, do this whole look at me thing. And like Amit was saying earlier, we are trying to make things which are targeting Khan. They are not targeting the consumer, they are not targeting this country, but they're targeting something else altogether. If we are irresponsible, we deserve to be rapped on the knuckles. Our windows deserve to be broken. Having said that, do we have a responsibility as marketeers to mold attitudes, to drive new and fresh conversations so that minds can be opened in the context of our brands? However, yes, we do. So the trick is that the word authentic, I think we also deal with it very shallowly. It has to be authentic to your consumer, to your context, but equally to your brand. Does your brand have a responsibility and opportunity and a reason to be telling that story, to be in that conversation, is the first thing to examine. If you're a cola, for example, maybe you're already poisoning people with sugar. Are you going to be lecturing them or telling stories about health? Maybe not. Maybe you should just be responsible, saying when they want to pamper themselves and feed themselves sugar, that's my role. And उसके अलावा मेरे को और जो करना है मैं करूँगा. So I think the balance is required and gravitas is required in examining the opportunities as well.
Staying true to the brand. Amit, I want to throw this back at you again. We had seen a lot of, especially with the intention of targeting millennials at one point, and now that kind of has gotten, the legacy of moved forward to Gen Z. Purpose. People were talking purpose and sustainability, and their storytelling had to have this big picture. वो थोड़ा कम हो गया. Now from your perspective, where is this conversation really headed? Are we going to see more of this purpose driven and all those big statements? Are we going to see like a shift? Where is this going?
See, if you actually see today, Noor, two things when you talk about purpose, when you talk about authentic storytelling, I think most of the, and I'll, since I'm representing the fraternity of marketing, keeping the hand to that, everybody is very confused today. And let me put it very straightforward and honest, because what we are trying to do everything at the same time, but your audience doesn't have that attention to actually grab the same time. There are many marketers, there are many conversations that I have been part of it, which says, boss, I myself don't know whether the X particular communication is right or the Y is right. And the reason being because we actually want to do in a shorter time span, we really want to do things which are much more higher. Also taking a step back when you and Karthi was talking about in terms of from ages, and we all remember from dinosaur ages when we actually have lot of regulations. And everybody remember, but if you really want to go something to advertise on India, Pakistan on a Doordarshan, then you have to have a storyboard approval. That was a dinosaur age to look for. And everybody followed that and everybody looked for it. Why the entire particular question about you have some regulations? Regulation is fine. But what is the intent of the brand today? If your intent is right, you understand that you really want to do something, because you also need to look into the cultural nuances of the country itself. You just can't do something which is very obnoxious. It doesn't give you the entire... Coming again back to your particular question, it's a very, very confusing state today. What you want to see, what happens, there are a lot of people who talk about, let's say that I am very, very conscious about environment, but the product doesn't support that. So you're actually trying to create a mistrust in the mind of the consumer, whether it is Gen Z or any particular consumer that you look for. Be authentic in what you actually do. Communication is just a medium to actually help you to reach out to your audience. If you are not authentic in providing the product or the services that you do, then irrespective you do whatever in terms of advertising communication, it will never make a mark in the minds of any of the consumer that you actually look for.
All right, perfect.
So,
yes.
I generally believe purpose is a luxury some brands have, some brands should not have. Okay. If you are Tom's or if you are Patagonia, when you are founded with a purpose, that's fine. Otherwise, I think purpose is, and I know, I'm sorry, the last panel was on purpose, but if you are a startup brand and if you're trying to build up something new, please keep purpose aside for the next 5 years.
5 years.
Try to focus on building your company, okay? And I don't know why marketers feel that I need something higher purpose than selling, right? If you are selling soap, why are you not happy by selling soap? Why does it have to be that, I'm changing the lives of a million people, right? So I think, I genuinely believe it's a luxury that certain brands have, and unless you're founded by it. So if you're founded with the fact that, I'm a Patagonia, that's my job, then great, perfect. Otherwise, please keep it aside for.
All right, excellent. We spoke toys to tools right now, but there's another problem with generative AI especially. Ethics to ek ho gaya, security is another. These are some real problems. I would like to get some advice from you for, the younger marketers who are coming in. For them, these things must be too native. They are just pretty much getting into it. They're riding the AI age like we rode the web age. I don't talk about it, but anything over here in terms of advice, let's talk the ethics part of it first. What should we keep in mind? Amit, you want to take it on? You were giving us an example also where you were faced with a situation.
See, I think first thing that we really need to draw is that let's not jump into, and I agree with what Ashish was saying, let's not jump into things which just for the heck of doing it. If everybody is doing it, I should also do it. what is the need? And I think that's where in terms of purpose-led marketing comes into place. What do you really want to achieve from doing it? And when you actually do, and today what has happened is, if you see the age in which we are, and specifically the development that has happened in AI globally in most of the places, it's only content and creative development. It's not gone something which is remarkable in terms of we can actually do a customer service, which has not reached to that level. But the challenge today is we want to do a lot of shortcuts and time crunch to look for. If an artwork takes 12 hours, how can we actually deliver it in 12 minutes or 1.5 hours to look for? And what is happening, that is actually trying to lapse a lot of processes, a lot of quality checks, and a lot of ethical checks, whether it is actually been applicable or not. There was one particular case, without naming the brand, there were two particular brands who actually gave the same prompt, and 94% of their particular creative outcome was the same. And both got published on one of the social media platforms. And there were a lot of users on the platform started posting posts. Is the creative agency same, or they're actually using the same particular guy to deliver the same messaging was different, the entire artwork was the same, the visual was absolutely fine. So you have to be very, very clear in terms of, and I would not blame any particular marketer, whether young, old, to actually talk about, because it is not their fault. It is, nobody has actually guided them, told them what you need to look for. So there has to be a guiding principles about what you need to do, ethically as well as in terms of security, what you can actually do. Maybe somebody else would have seen this particular picture somewhere and started developing the same because it was a nice, attractive visual to look for.
So, if you're as old as me, you may remember there was an era when we used to use stock images also. Yes. Now, what Amit has just described is pretty similar to that, right? If your search for that stock image is going to be a generic search, then the grave risk you have is that you get generic output, and generic output will be the same for you and your competitor brand. In my time, I have seen multiple banks use the same happy family photo for all of them. So with generative AI, if your prompt is generic, your output will also be generic. Now, therefore, the challenge as well as the opportunity for the marketer is, what distinctively are you bringing to the conversation? Are you bringing your brand's personality? What is special about your brand that you want to pack into what you want to communicate? Once you know that, then everything writes itself. So it's the unique and distinctive personality that you have to offer that can differentiate and distinguish. And then you don't have to worry about the tool, whether it's stock imagery, whether it's generative, or it's someone who sat down and drawn with a pen. Again, I'm old enough to have seen people do that. So it's a sad thing that those days are gone, because it was a real delight to watch people do that.
So, yeah, so if you're a 26-year-old marketer, right, your next promotion / job depends on a cool kick-ass campaign that you're trying to do, right? And that's where this tool becomes very exciting, that you want to, like, maybe I can generate a campaign in a voice of some artist that's there, and you want to try to do some gimmickry stuff, great ideas. But I always keep telling my team, make sure that everyone is compensated right, you're ethical in the way you went about it. So you can't prevent, if trying to curtail young minds on saying, don't try crazy stuff is also not right, because you want to see crazy stuff, brave stuff coming out. That's where these tools are going to come in really handy. My 28-year-olds in my team are really excited about using all these tools. So as long as we are following the rules, and it's also not fair, right? If I want to generate a radio spot in Mr. Bachchan's voice, but and I have tools now to do that, but I don't compensate for that, that's also wrong. So that's the ethical part, which I think if you follow that, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, because what Amitji described, if you're as old as me, it sounds like plagiarism to me, because, and it happened to journalists as well, right? We also came through this AI age.
Sorry, please complete. No, I think has meant a very, very valid point. 2019, two brands at the time of Diwali and Dhanteras being the very, very big for the two consumer brands, use exactly the same image on the full page ad that they actually put on Dhanteras and the Diwali. Exactly the same. And within 24-25 minutes, it was all there on the social media buzz that either people have started using the same agency, they have started using the cost cutting and everything, and exactly same. So these things used to happen before. The only thing is you have to be very careful in terms of what are you actually trying to attempt and how are you actually trying to move. Fortunately, I think the best part is the way in which the era in which India is today, we have a lot of rules, a lot of guidelines and frameworks which are already there for the budding marketers and for everyone to actually know what is right and what is wrong in using whatever you're actually trying to do on this new technology to build in.
All right, excellent. Let's move to the tenets a little bit. I see we still have 14 minutes. Is that right, people? I have no other reason for asking. I just want to be sure that I am not delaying anybody. I am very good at talking. पता ही नहीं चलेगा हम लोगों को. You know, yesterday. Yes, exactly. So yesterday, both Karthi and Amit had made this request, if we can, and it was my role to come down on the floor and see some of you. I see Samir sir is here. I see Mohit is here. This is a heads up to you people. I'm going to walk up to you, and our idea is to get some perspectives from you, and then they would like to also kind of weigh in on that. So I am going to be, what is that, late night show, which one it is, where they're walking between the audiences. So that's going to happen now. I'm coming. Mohit, I'm coming to you first, and I have a reason for that. Yesterday, Mohit spoke to us about meaningful brands. And I think, that, and there's a Gen Z cut in it, isn't it, Mohit? So, Mohit, just take us through, we're talking about storytelling over here. Anything, any kind of a takeaway you had about that particular audience on this aspect?
Thanks, Noor. Yes, you're right. There is a cut of Gen Z, and what essentially they talk about storytelling is that for them, as they said, it has to be absolutely transparent. So they are not looking at winded stories, which probably our generation could have leaned onto, but they want it simple. They want it straight. They don't have the patience. They want content which is smart and short, which delivers what they want. So I think the biggest difference is that there is patience is less, and that results in the communication and stories that we tell them to be much more sharper, much more faster.
Can I counter that, Mohit?
Yes, that's why you wanted this.
We used to watch 30-minute episodes on television and wait for the next episode next week. These guys are watching 8 hours at a stop, and so are we, of course. So the patience is also contextual. If you are engaging me, I will watch. Right?
Completely agree with you. That's something that is definitely there. Only thing is, when it comes to brand communication, I'm talking more from a perspective of brand communication. They want a very, very, quick communication and come to the point and move forward.
Agreed. I think across any country, if you do a poll, the top 2 brands that Gen Z love is YouTube and Google. And the reason is YouTube is they want authentic responses, reviews from people who are like them. So there's no there's no marketing spiel over it, same as Google. So that's where your point lands.
Yeah, that was Mohit Joshi, the CEO of Abbas Media in India, and he has a presentation later today. I invite the panels to watch that, because yesterday when I was watching it, for me also it was very eye-opening. Of course, I'm coming to Mrs. Saxena. Just to kind of get your sense also on this. You have heard panels today. Gen Z is an important audience overall, but I'm guessing not for you. So, but who did this to me? Oh, yeah, somebody from my team. But how are you looking at it from an audience perspective? Do you equip yourself with this? How do you look at it?
We do equip ourselves because it's quite different from what our narratives are. We are technical, we are B2B. So the challenge for us is the attention span. How can we create a narrative for them for the attention span? A simple thing like a door phone now. For the first time, Legrand went into a door phone for our Instagram 30-second storytelling, which we would have never imagined 2 years or 3 years back that Legrand would do something on Instagram. So I think for us, the challenge is always the attention span. We as a company want a couple of hours to do our B2B sales pitch, but to do that in 30 seconds is a bit of a challenge, yes.
I think the point of attention span is back. On the point of attention span, if I have to listen to Mohit, my boss will also belong to Gen Z, because that's exactly his attention span when he's speaking with us at least. You have the chance to ask questions right now, so if you raise your hand, I will come to you. I don't know if it's still showing 14 minutes, is it?
10 minutes.
Oh, amazing. But then, so that was Mr. Samir Saxena from Legrand. He's also one of our winners of Top 100 Marketers, and he has a session later today. If you have questions, raise your hands and, somebody will get a mic to you. I'm lying, not really, because we don't have time for audience Q&A. Aapke paas abhi nahi hai, so the chance is gone. I'm coming back up. All right, gentlemen, we have got a couple of perspectives from our audiences over here. I'm going to bring it back again. what Ashish was telling us in the beginning, they're not really important for everyone, but we do really need to know a little bit about them. As we are winding up, let's discuss what we talked about, advice to young marketers. Have fun, do your thing, don't forget the fundamentals. So Ashish had told us to it in the beginning. Somebody yesterday, Ashish, were you also speaking about, how you've seen these some work lately that was just short of business insights, etc. We end up seeing sometimes where the fundamentals of marketing is missing. So I think the first advice, let's go with advice right now. Ashish, you go for it. Any first, second, third advice that you have for young marketers, especially those who are 2-3 years old in the business?
I fundamentally believe that where you spend and which brand, which leader you spend between the ages of 27 to 37 decides your career after that. So be very cautious on where you're working, under whom you're working. That sets you up for future roles, leadership roles. And nothing gets built in 2 years. So learn to stick around for 3 to 5 years to be here. So I come from, my last job I was 14 years, I'm 3 years. So I don't think you can make meaningful changes in 2-3 years, but that's the problem. This generation wants to move 30%, 20% in every 2 years. So that hurts in the long term.
But that is so true. And this generation and the generation before them also, one of our takeaways when we were doing the top marketer list was the churn and the stint. Amit ji, you wanted to say something? Go for it.
Sure. So I will only say, 3 things which I always believe, that's what I tell most of the people in my team and most of the people whom I mentor is, there are 3 R's basically. Reskill yourself. In our times, people say after 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, but I'd say reskill whenever you get an opportunity to be relevant in what you actually do. Recalibrate yourself, what are you actually trying to do? It's most important today because you can't think after 8 years ago, I have not been able to do what I really need to do. And last but not least is basically reboot yourself. Just reboot in terms of take a back step. It's not about job, it's about career. You have to find a difference between job and career, and that is the right time. Otherwise, you will become very irrelevant in a very short span of time.
Yeah, correct. That's true. That's absolutely true. लेकिन ये बहुत हो रहा है फिर भी.
All right. So this is clearly targeted at the young marketer. 3 things I want to say. 1, yesterday there was some talk about marketers aspiring, the CMO aspiring to the CEO seat and so on and so forth. I will say to young marketers, don't bother. Why? Because this job is the most fun you can have with your clothes on. The CEO's job is full of shit. So if you get there, great. But don't worry about it because you get to get away with murder in this job. You don't get to get away with murder in the CEO's job. So focus on having fun. The second thing, Peter Drucker, management guru from not your century, from our century, has said that marketing is actually the only distinguishing function of business. And this is absolutely true. Why? Because it's the marketer's job to crystal gaze, to mold attitudes, to drag the brand, the organization, and arguably society forward. So you get to change the world. Why the hell would you give that opportunity up? And on the issue of revolving door, which Amit also referred to, and so did Ashish, I agree 100%. Average tenure we heard is 30 months. I came very close to trying to do 30 years. So, and I can tell you that every single day of it was fun. So dig your heels in and you will find lots of meaning, and you will really be able to effect change only if you stay around for a long time.
All right, excellent. We still have 6 minutes on the clock. I have a couple of last questions here. लेकिन आपको पता है ना मैं पत्रकार हूँ. मतलब how do I give it up? How will I let it go? I'm in a shock that I have that much time. लेकिन I just want to ask, I know that there are some young winners that we have with us today. I also know that we have invited some people who are looking at marketing as a discipline. So if there are any young marketers in the room, and if you have any kind of a question, query, need not be related to our subject, you are very welcome to ask at this point, any young marketer who may have any kind of a query. But I'm taking the cue exactly from that and broadening this just a little bit and bringing it to young marketers overall. See, the churn is one thing. The second thing is literally they are undergoing these conversations where they are hearing whether the role of the marketer will remain relevant in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? You put it beautifully that marketing is the only function that is the differentiator in the company. How long will that continue to be true, especially given the way we are looking at technology, the way we are looking at other functions that have a say in consumer engagement or how they would want to treat the consumers? How long will this remain true?
So I'll respond to it in two ways. One, I have, in my 17-year journey at Kotak, I have seen marketing go from a department to a mindset, and I was part of enabling that also. So I saw the analytics team embracing marketing. I saw even the compliance function embracing marketing in their context, HR, etc., etc. So what I have seen, have enabled, and I'm very happy about is that once the company gets, so for example in Hindustan Lever that doesn't need to happen, right? Everyone is a marketer, every single employee in some form or the other is a marketer. In a financial services company that didn't used to be the case, it is so now. And I think that is one reassuring factor for me, that marketing, it's not just about the fact that the marketer has a job, but if the company thinks of itself as a marketing organization, which is what Peter Drucker says we are, then there is no worry at all. And let's pull much more back fundamentally and go to the title of this talk, storytelling. Storytelling is what distinguishes us as human beings. Storytelling is what will distinguish us from generative AI as well, is what so far they are saying. Of course, things can change. We don't know. I don't have the crystal ball to be able to tell you what will happen 10 years into the future. I was in a conference room like this in Bombay 2 weeks ago, where one of the top 10 AI scientists of the world was telling us about how by 2030, the ability of computers to process multiple variations of a question, for example, will outstrip our brain's ability to do that by a magnitude of, I can't even remember the number, by 1 trillion times. So in some things, AI will be way ahead of us. But my suspicion is that in being imaginative, it's highly unlikely to be, because AI essentially is based on everything you fed it, which is everything in the past. The one skill and power that we have as humans is being able to be imaginative and conjure up stuff that never existed before in our heads, and therefore into the world, manifest it into the world as well. And that is the marketer's job. So I don't see the marketer's job ever going away.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think in any organization that doesn't value marketing or doesn't, then it's the functions problem. You have not done a great job. If you've done a great job, I don't see any organization, any sector that doesn't appreciate what marketing brings to the table. And that will continue to happen no matter what, now, 6 years down, 10 years down the line, because we are, if you think of yourself as a growth generator versus cost center and not a balance sheet, then you will drive that respect. You'll earn that respect from the organization. And whether you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job because your fundamentals as a marketer are wrong. You are not a great marketer. You are chasing the wrong KPIs, and that's why you. So AI is not going to take your job. You need to, as Amit said, maybe reskill yourself, reboot yourself, and learn how to do it better.
Thank you.
I think, Noor, I personally believe marketing is not going to change. It will just evolve, and it will have much more better place what is happening today in the next 4 or 5 years. And I'll tell you why and what is happening today. It will not be a generic marketing in future. It's an era, and we can see right now it's going towards micro specialization. Technology may come, it will only add to the entire value that marketing is generated. It may not be a chief marketing officer role, it may be chief experience officer, chief digital officer, chief data officer. But the fact is that marketing will actually evolve in a much more micro specialized, and it will actually take much more bigger roles what you're actually doing it today.
All right, perfect. We are on the last minute. I got a couple of cues as well. Believe it or not, that was pretty much how we are ending this today. I want to thank the audience, and I would request everybody to please put your hands together for my wonderful panelists. They didn't fight. Thank you.